Well, hello, everyone. My name is Alaina G. Levine, and I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions and author of the book Networking for Nerds. I'm really excited to be with you today to give this webinar on a mid-career change, question mark? No problems, only opportunities, exclamation point, hashtag you are awesome. This is a really important topic for myself, for my colleagues, for my friends, for my team members, for my clients, because you will absolutely have a career change in your life. And that career change could take many different forms. We're going to go into that in a bit. You will probably have many career changes that will take place in your life. They could be deemed positive or negative or neutral. We're going to talk about that too. And what I want to present for you today is how you can actually approach these changes that will come and how you can prepare to adapt and change your life when you are faced with a potential change, and how you can successfully improve and potentially even move in a new direction that makes sense for you. And I've had many changes and challenges in my own career, and multiple careers in fact, and I've found that the method that I'm going to be giving you today has been especially helpful to me in how I have been able to move forward. So this talk is actually going to be very much a talk devoted to you collecting data about yourself and data about other types of paths that you can take. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'd really like to thank my partners in this webinar, and that's the AIP Career Network. And all of the organizations, the logos of which you see at the bottom of the screen, are my team members in this effort. And they're the ones who have been really instrumental in making sure that we can give you this type of information to help you be successful in the career of your choice. So with that in mind, what our goals are today is our goals will consist of identifying where I am now in my career, excuse me, understanding why I want to make a change now and what change that should be. I'm going to be talking about how to identify opportunities, and clearly to identify opportunities that are right for me, and that's the what of the plan. We're going to discuss how to create the strategic plan, that's the how, so actually how do you orchestrate that change, or how do you adapt from that change, and then how to actually execute that plan professionally. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, career changes are not unusual. I have even heard a common data point, or a common, it might not be a data point, it could be just an opinion, but it's used so much in so many articles that at this point I'm beginning to wonder if it truly is a data point. And this data point says that people change careers, not just jobs, but they change careers somewhere of an average between 5 to 7 times in their life. That seems about right to me, based on the interactions that I have with clients and with people that I work with, and even myself. I have changed careers multiple times. I think at this point I'm on career 5.2 or 5.3, and you know, in 10 years I might be doing something different. In 2 years or 2 months I might be doing something different. And that is really important to remember, that you are not in the same you are in the same boat as everybody else. In other words, everybody has issues with change in their career. And so if you look at some very specific data, you'll note that LinkedIn, they did a study and they found that the number of organizations people work for in the 5 years since they graduated is 2 times what it used to be. And in fact, people change jobs, in particular graduates from 86 to 90, people who graduated from college in 1986 to 1990, they changed an average of jobs over their lifetime over 1.6. So they had more than 1.6 jobs. And graduates from 06 to 10 averaged over 2.85 jobs, which I thought was really interesting. So the number seems to be increasing, at least according to that one data set. But according to MarketWatch and also the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, another interesting point that I wanted you to be aware of is that U.S. workers generally are sticking with their current jobs more than they did in the past. In 2016, the average number of years that people were staying in their job was 4.2 years. You know, only 14 years prior to that, it was 3.7, and 1983 it was 3.5. But yet, they do want to leave. So according to Career Builder, they did a survey and they found that only 29% of workers feel valued in their jobs, and 21% of full-time staff want to change jobs. They wanted to change jobs in 2014, which was the largest percentage since 2008, up from 17%. And so it tells me that people are always on the lookout for new opportunities, and that people are smart planners, because you never know. Things that you have put in place that you think are going to be the same and going to work forever and be the same forever, or for 10 years or 20 years, you never know, could change in the blink of an eye. Your boss, whom you might have a really, really fantastic relationship with, he or she might take a job somewhere else, and then somebody else comes in and they're not treating you well. They could potentially die, and then somebody comes in and you're just not having a good chemistry with them. The economy could change, which might mean that you could potentially become unemployed, or you personally may become less passionate about your field, about your industry. Your values could change. All of these things happen over the course of a lifetime. And when we are smart planners, we think about these things ahead of time so that when a potential change is presented to us, we can move forward from that change. And so I'm really excited that people are starting to plan, that they are thinking ahead. With any change, the most important thing that you have to remember, and this is a challenge because when you are in the midst of a change, like being laid off, like changing, like having to move from one side of the world to the other, you sometimes can feel like you're spinning out of control. But what you have to remember always is that you are the one who has the power. You are the one who is making the choice. You are in control. And what do I mean by that? Because even in a layoff, when you are laid off, and I have been laid off, and I did not feel like I had any power because I was being laid off. I was being told that I'm not going to be able to work at this place anymore. Even with that, I still knew that I had choice to do the next thing, to take the next step. I still felt, yes, there was something that I couldn't control. I couldn't control being laid off, but I could control my reaction to it. I could control my next step, my next move that I was going to make. If I had stayed with an employer and a supervisor who was rude, with whom I had a bad chemistry or a bad relationship, or who did not value me or treat me with respect, if I stayed with that person, I would be making that choice to stay with that person. So it's very important for you to remember, in both negative and positive and neutral scenarios, when there is a change ahead, that you are truly the one who is in control. And if you recognize that I'm in control of my career, I make the decisions, and I'm in the driver's seat, it gives you not only an incredible amount of power to make the right choices to move forward, but here's the other brilliant thing about it, is that it also psychologically sets you up for success for the next step, because you know that you are empowered. You know that you are the one who is controlling the system as much as you possibly can. And that's a really important mindset and attitude that you really want to have. And that's important for success of any kind. You always want to be remembering that I am the one in power. Well, I'm the one in power for me, and you're the one in power for you. Now, let's talk about where we are now in our career as we look at this change. So we might be a new graduate. Maybe we just finished our bachelor's degree, or we finished our PhD or our master's, or we've completed our postdoc appointment and now we're looking to take a next step. We might be newly unemployed, maybe because of a firing or a layoff, or maybe I quit because I just was not getting along with the system, or I didn't like this job anymore. Maybe I've been newly inspired to make a change, so maybe I haven't made the change yet. But I'm thinking, you know, I want to move out of physics and I want to bake cupcakes. And this is where my passion really lies, and this is what I'm going to look to do. I might have been thinking about a change for a while, but I couldn't put the words to the page. I couldn't think about what exactly was causing me to make a change, or was causing me to look outside the boundaries of my current job or my current career. I may need to make a change. The need could come, and we're going to talk about needs and wants. The need could come from a lifestyle change. It could come from a geographic change. It could come from an economic change. It could come from an internal mechanism from yourself that you need It's not just a want anymore, but that you need to make a change in your life. And as I kind of alluded to before, values of people change over time. What I consider to be a priority when I was 22 is not what I consider to be a priority right now at 42. 42 and fabulous, of course, you know. And I will not consider these to be priorities when I'm 52 and 62 and so on and so forth. These will change. And I have to be aware of that, and I have to be open to that, because people change themselves over time, and that's totally appropriate and fine. Okay. So we want to look at, now we're going to look at the information gathering phase. This is the data collection opportunity for you. We're going to do a self-assessment, and we're going to talk about why is it that I want or need to make a change, and why is it that I need to do that right now. Now, before you make any change, if you haven't made the change already, we want to understand the why and the why now. And so what I recommend you doing is, if you are thinking about making a change, or there is a change coming, they're laying people off in your company, and there will be a change that will need to be made on your part, I recommend you to making a list of what you view as positive stimuli and negative stimuli that may be influencing the change. So positive stimuli could consist of, maybe I want to change fields or subfields. You know, I've been really interested in plasma physics, and that's my expertise and that's my education, but I'm really more interested in nanotechnology, so I want to move into that. Maybe I want a position with higher authority or higher responsibility, or a more visible position. Maybe I want more impact in my position, right? I mean, a lot of scientists, engineers, lots of professionals go into their profession and their career because they want to have an impact. They want to have an influence of something. They want to make a difference in the world. And maybe in the current position that they have right this moment, or in their current career choice that they have this moment, they're not getting the type of impact or creating the kind of impact that would really bring them intellectual pleasure and even personal pleasure too, and so in their heart. So maybe that is something that is causing you to think that you want to make a change, that you want to have a bigger impact. Maybe there's a geographic issue, right? Maybe you want or need to move to a new location. Maybe you've been living in Omaha, Nebraska, and you've always really been interested in Japan, and you've realized, you know what, if I don't move to Japan now, I'm going to regret it. I really, really love Japanese culture and everything about Japan. Maybe this is the opportunity for me. Maybe this is the time for me to move to Japan. And maybe there's an industry stimulus. You know, maybe you want to change organizations or change industry altogether. You know, maybe you're working in oil and gas and you want to come back to academia. Maybe you're working in nanotech and you want to bake cupcakes. I keep mentioning cupcakes because I love cupcakes. That is a fact. That's a scientific fact that Alaina loves cupcakes. But also because I've actually known a number of scientists and engineers who really, really are passionate about baking, and particularly baking cupcakes, and in even more particular, they are passionate about baking cupcakes that are in the shape of scientific or engineering issues and principles, and they bake cupcakes that look like molecules or have molecules designed on them, I mean, or flasks and things like that. So I just love that idea of combining the two passions, the baking and the engineering and the science. And so that might be a positive stimuli. So we're going to list out what are the positive things that are urging me or pushing me in the direction of a change. And then I'm going to list out what I view as a negative stimuli. And it's important to recognize that what your perspective is of whether something is a negative stimulus or a positive stimulus, it actually might be the opposite. Something that you view as negative could be potentially positive, and vice versa. But for this exercise, we're going to see if we can separate them, because there might be data that we can collect just from listing it out about ourselves that will be useful for us and help us to design and decide what our next step will be. So potential negative stimuli that could be influencing your decision and your choice to make a change could be, I'm going to come back to not having a job, but it could be that the job tasks that you're in right now are just they're not giving you passion. Maybe they're boring. Maybe they are a little bit not interesting to you. Maybe they're too challenging. Maybe the work environment is feels negative to you. And it could be because you have a toxic boss or a toxic team. You could have a dysfunctional team. There might be a resource issue. Maybe you're trying to do your job the best way you can, but you're not able to get the adequate and the necessary resources. Maybe you're trying to work on an experiment with broken equipment. How can you potentially move forward in your career and even solve the problems required of the job if you don't have the resources needed? And maybe there's a salary issue. Maybe there's a monetary issue. We haven't talked about that yet. But that could be a negative stimuli. In other words, I'm underpaid, or I need more money because of my life, and maybe because I also need it because I should be compensated appropriately for my education, my experience, and the value that I'm bringing to the organization. So these are a couple of the different types of stimuli. And then in the middle, of course, we have the idea of not having a job. And I list this as both a positive and a negative, because what I've found with some of my colleagues and clients is that oftentimes the life-altering activity or the life-altering issue of not having a job suddenly or potentially in the near future, perhaps due to a layoff, can actually be both a negative and a positive in their life. Yes, a negative, it's upsetting, it's sad, you have to grieve over the loss of the job. You might be mad at the company, at the organization, at the team, at the supervisor for seemingly not valuing you. But on the other hand, this business of not having a job could potentially move you and give you the stimulus that you need to make a change for the better. You know, recently I had a longtime client that I had been working with for about 6 years. And I worked with them for 6 years, and at the end of, or at the beginning of this year, they reached out to me and they said, you know, we're not going to engage you any further. And at first I was really mad. I was really mad because that's a loss of a client, it's loss of money for me, it's loss of my compensation, and it's also, I felt that they didn't value me. Why would they let go of me now? Did they not value me? But I realized that the churning that I had in my stomach and in my brain and in my heart of anger and just really just feeling furious was actually something that I could turn and spin into something positive. So now I felt, all right, I'm not going to be working with this client, so now I'm going to look to see what I can pursue. Now that this client is no longer on my schedule, perhaps this will open me up to other opportunities. And now my eyes can be wider. They can see more in front of me, because before my eyes were closed because I was working with this client. I couldn't look for other things. I was only focused on this client. But now my eyes are open, and now I'm seeing vistas. I'm seeing canyons and mountains and water and all sorts of different landscapes of potential opportunity for myself that I didn't even know existed before. I didn't even think to look. So it's opened my eyes, and it made a huge difference. And it also helped me to realize that this is not something that I can change. If they have decided they are not going to work with me anymore, I can't fight that. And the idea that I said to myself, I am not going to fight them mentally or verbally. I'm not going to fight them. This is what they've decided. That's fine. I will take ownership and move in a different direction. And that felt good to me. It made me feel better about myself. And that attitude helped me open up my eyes to other things too. So we're talking about psychological, attitudinal changes that we can make in our minds so that we can be open to change and look for new opportunities. Now, as we're continuing in our data collection of ourselves, it's also very useful for you to distinguish between needs and wants out of your next opportunity. Because there is intersection between needs and wants, but there are some things that are very specifically just needs and some things that are very specifically just wants. And when you're able to identify which is which, then you can more clearly take an approach that is very data-centered to decide what is the next position that you should be pursuing, or what is the next opportunity you should be pursuing. Let me give you an example. So a number of needs that people typically want out of the next career change that they make or the next opportunity they pursue due to a change that occurs is they may need more money. They may be, their lifestyle might have changed in such a way that they need more money. They may need flexibility, maybe to interact with the family, for their personal life. Maybe they want, notice I said want, maybe they want to bake cupcakes in their spare time. So they don't want to necessarily pursue a career in cupcakes yet, but they want time to bake cupcakes. But maybe they need time to be able to take care of their kid, right? That's a need. Maybe I need to live in a particular region of the world, perhaps because of family issues or personal choices that are related to needs. Maybe I need certain benefits. I mean, we all need health insurance and other types of insurance and other types of benefits that we get from potential employers, but it might be that I absolutely need it right now. And I might need time and resources to work on my projects, both in the employment system as well as within the context of my own life. The need. I may need to be doing yoga. If I don't do yoga, I am not a happy camper. So that is a need as opposed to a want. Maybe, but let's look at the wants. Maybe I really just want to live in New York City, like the example I gave before about Japan. It wasn't that I needed to live in Japan, but I really would love to try Japan. I would love to live in Japan. Or maybe I do want to pursue outside passions outside of my career, and that could include cupcakes, it could include fitness, it could include other types of hobbies that you really want to pursue. And so maybe you want a job or want a career where you can pursue those opportunities. Maybe I want to switch from particle physics to volcanology. Maybe I want to work in industry versus academia. Knowing what's a want and what's a need is going to help you, because you will then be able to put opportunities on your list that you should pursue and take opportunities off your list that you should not pursue. Let me give you an example of that from my own life. I used to think when I was younger, back 100,000 years ago, right? 100,000 years ago, of course, when dinosaurs, right? I said 100,000 years, when dinosaurs and humans were hunting on the flat earth together. So I think that was about the correct time, about 100,000 years ago is when they were there. That's when I was thinking, you know, maybe I should pursue a career in management consulting. That maybe that would be something that I would really enjoy. The problems sound interesting. There's a diversity of problems. You have a diversity of team members that you're interacting with. There's constant intellectual stimulation and challenge. That sounded like that would be a good career for Alaina to pursue. And I started looking into it. And I went onto the website of a very well-known management consulting company, and they actually, on their careers website, they actually do logs. They provide diaries of typical employees to show you what is a week in the life like for these associates who work for this management consulting firm. And what I noticed was definitely a theme, and the theme was that these consultants worked sometimes 16, 17 hours a day. And they were with the same team for all of that time, and they had all of their meals together. And they might also be working on a project in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of a city for weeks at a time, away from their family or away from the things that they enjoy, or not even able to exercise because they're working such long hours. And I realized, that does not sound good for Alaina. That doesn't sound right for who I am. I have to be honest with myself. And the honesty is that what I need out of a career is I need time to unwind. I cannot work 16 hours a day, every single day. I mean, I do it occasionally, but it's not something that I can do and sustain a mental health. So I know that when it comes to like working, let's say I work on a project for a few weeks and I'm having long hours, I know that I'm going to need downtime in the evening where I can just watch TV. I can just veg out and binge watch, Better Call Saul, Westworld, and Mr. Robot. That is Alaina's life. That's the reality of me. And when I'm able to do that, when I'm able to watch Mr. Robot for hours and hours and hours, I feel relaxed, I feel invigorated, and I'm able to get new ideas, and I'm able to approach my projects with even more energy. That is not a want for my life. That is a need. And when I identified for myself truly that that was a need, that I needed download time, downtime to download and digest and relax, then I was able to cross that management consulting company off the list, and I was able to realize that just because I'm not pursuing a career in that field does not mean that I am not going to be successful. I can pursue a career in another field and be just as successful, because of course success is defined by me, for me, and your success is defined for you, by you. And so by crossing that off the list, it really empowered me again to make me feel, you know what, there's nothing wrong with me that I don't want to or I can't pursue a career in management consulting. It's just not the right choice for me. And now, and this was phase 2, now I'm going to look for other opportunities that do make sense for me and allow me to indulge in Westworld. And by the way, if you want to talk to me about Westworld and Mr. Robot and discuss all of the conspiracy theories, I am thrilled to do that. We can absolutely make an appointment to do that. So knowing what your needs are and what your wants are out of your life and out of your career are really going to help you plan appropriately for that next change. But with any change, before you make any change, be careful about the economy, assess any potential ramifications and outcomes to those changes that you might want to need or make, might want to need to make or want to make, and just be careful, watch your step and make those plans, those contingency plans, which we're going to talk about. I want to give you a few customized resources that will aid you in your career change, whether you are doing that change yourself or that change is in front of you without your original decision. And these things I can also send to you as well. So if you send me an email, I'd be happy to send them to you. So the first thing, some of you have seen this tool I use a lot. It's called a skill inventory matrix. This is going to be very helpful to you. This is a private document. You use it to populate your resume, your CV, your cover letter. You use it to, on your LinkedIn profile, you also use it to help you decide what is it that you are good at and what types of problems do you enjoy solving. You don't have to show this to anybody. This is a private document. You're going to keep this on your home computer, on your home device. And what you're going to do is as you pursue opportunities throughout your life, you're going to keep inputting information into this matrix. We're going to start by looking at all of the different experiences and jobs that I've had over time. A job is not necessarily something that I was paid to do. It could be a short-term project. It could be a research endeavor that I pursued. It could be a volunteer position. It could be an internship. It could be something I do in the community versus something I do within science and engineering. But the point is, we're going to write down every experience or job that gave us experience. We're going to write that down. And then we're going to list out what were the technical skills that I gained from that experience. And of course, in science and engineering, we're going to get the scientific skills and the engineering skills, instrumentation skills, machining skills, and even computing skills, which includes software, platforms, and packages. We're also going to list out the business skills that I gained from those experiences. What did I learn? Outside the job of being a scientist, what did I learn? Well, if I was on a team, I probably did team management or team relations or team building and project management. If I was on a grant or I was involved in the budget of a particular project or a lab, I might have accounting and budgeting and finance experience. If I hired and trained somebody in my research group, I might have human resources and training experience. If I bought something for the lab, I might have procurement experience. If I had a PI or a boss, I may have risk management experience. There's probably sales and marketing experience that you have. I mean, if you've written a grant, you've been involved in marketing. You might be involved in public relations and event management and customer relations and grant writing. And these are all some of the, just a few of some of the business skills that you've gained. And I want you to start listing these. And this is very useful. This matrix is so useful because what I want you to see is a record of how brilliant you are and how many skills you have, because scientists and engineers in particular tend to undersell and underappreciate and underrealize the full extent of their skill set. And part of that is because we do not get formal training in identifying those skills. We have to figure that out ourselves. Or somebody might say, can you write that grant? And then you realize, wait, I do have grant writing experience. But I'm sure your PI never said to you that because you wrote a grant, you have marketing experience. But that's what a grant proposal is. It's a marketing document, right? You're not saying that this work that I want $5 million for is really stupid. Please give me $5 million. Instead, you're saying this work is important, and here's the impact, and here's why you should potentially invest in it, and please give me $5 million. That's marketing. So we're not taught that we're getting these skills, but yet we are, and therefore we undervalue ourselves. So this matrix will help you to see the full extent of what you have and what you have at your disposal, which can also help you to see what types of opportunities you might want to pursue in the future. There's also soft skills that you've gained. These include different types of communications, leadership, diplomacy, conflict management, and then the final column here that you see is the characteristics. So what did I realize about myself from that experience or that job? You know, I realized I'm really good against a deadline, or I'm extremely detail-oriented, and I know this because I made list after list after list, and I checked every single list. Or I'm very results-driven. So be clear with yourself about what you realize about yourself. And remember, this is not bragging because we are doing data collection on ourselves. We have to have the full set of data if we are going to make the right choice for us in the future. Now, there's actually two hidden columns. I call them the clandestine or the Horcrux columns. Please laugh because I know you think that's hysterical, particularly the Harry Potter fans. And these two columns are actually the most important when we're plotting a change. And the first one is, what did I love? So what did I love about that experience? What did I enjoy? And be very granular about that thought process, right? I loved working with a window. I loved using this computer program. I loved using my hands. I loved, you know, being able to think for long periods. I loved doing literature searches outside of my field so I could get new ideas. What did I love, love, love? And then, of course, the corollary to that is, what did I hate? What did I absolutely hate from that experience? And really, this is so important. In fact, it's the most important column on the entire skill inventory matrix, because if you're going to be making a change, or if you need to make a change, it's very important to know what you hate to do. Because if you hate to do something, you should not be pursuing a career in that. So if you are confused as to whether or not something is a love or a hate, I have a very simple experiment that you can use to decide whether something is a love, should be in the love column, or something is in the hate column. And I know many of you right now, you're in front of your computers and your phones listening to this fabulous webinar. And what I'd like you to do is grab a pen or a stylus that you might have handy, or a pencil. Those can work too. What I want you to do is take that implement and I want you to shove it into your eyeball, okay? Take that pen and shove it all the way back in your eyeball and play around with the vitreous jelly that's back there. It's really interesting, the anatomy of the eyeball. And what I want you to do is remove some of that vitreous jelly with that stylus, put it under a scanning electron microscope, take a look at that, write a paper, publish it, and then put the vitreous jelly back in the eyeball. Now, if that experience sounds more exciting and appetizing to you than doing X ever again, than solving this type of problem ever again, than using this skill set or doing this task ever again, then that task, that problem, that skill is what's going to be in your hate column. So basically, if you don't know whether you hate something, think about shoving something in your eyeball, and if that is more fun to you than doing that thing, then that thing should be in your hate column. And then the most important thing is, do not pursue a career in that, okay? And sometimes we don't realize what we truly loathe until we have it in front of us. So this is a very effective exercise for you to do. Another career planning resource that I can send to you, of course you can probably make this yourself, is something that we see a lot in marketing, and it's called a SWOT analysis, and strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The strengths and weaknesses are intrinsic to us, opportunities and threats are extrinsic. So we think about, after doing the skill inventory matrix, we think about what are our strengths in skills, our strengths in characteristics, our strengths, even in terms of what we love to do. And what are our weaknesses? What could we improve upon? And then we're going to think about our opportunities. Now, opportunities is actually going to come from other types of data collection through networking, which I'm going to talk about next. So I'm going to hold on to that for a second. But the threats part I just wanted to point out to you is important to note, because threats to opportunities are not necessarily negative things. They could be, but in general, when we think about a threat to an opportunity, so let's say I've identified one of my strengths is working on large-scale programs, large-scale projects with lots of people, with huge budgets, and that are involved in the space industry. So maybe I've identified that based on my strengths and my skill set and my passions, that a good opportunity for me would be to become an astronaut. Okay, so that's my opportunity here. But a threat to that could be the following. Let's say I've identified that my need is to live in New Jersey, my home state. So I need to live in New Jersey. But guess what? There's not many astronaut jobs in New Jersey right now. There could be in the future, but primarily if you want to be an astronaut, you're going to have to live in other cities around the world, other states, other cities, other regions around the world. So that would be a threat to my opportunity of pursuing a career as an astronaut. So threats will come, our identification of threats will come from our identification of our hates and our identification of what our needs are, and that will become helpful to you in terms of what you decide to do next. The final career planning resource that I wanted you to be aware of is something that is actually used in your resume. This is actually the format of your resume, and that is identifying problem solution results. So anytime you list out a job or an experience on your resume or CV, you're thinking in terms of what was the problem I was presented, what was the solution I came up with, and what was the results of that solution, with a quantification as much as possible. So I increased, because I wrote this computer program, I increased the efficiency of the system by 50%, or I led a team that included 16 people, or I wrote a grant that resulted in a $5 million investment in the lab. So if you can quantify it, that gives me context and significance of your problem-solving ability. But what you can do is you can actually go through your different experiences and you can start identifying what were some of the problems that I solved, what were those solutions, what were the results. You're going to take that information, you're going to be able to put it on your resume. You're also going to be able to compare that to the hates and the loves. You're going to be able to compare that to the SWOT analysis, and you're going to be able to start to see patterns emerging of what problems you have solved with success that you have really enjoyed doing. And that's the type of thing that will help you plot your course for your next career move. By figuring out what problems you have solved and enjoy solving, and then pursuing opportunities that give you the chance to solve those problems with even more impact and maybe even more visibility and at a higher level. Now, before you make any change, in addition to your internal or intrinsic data collection, we also want to look at what else might be influencing our change, our career goal, and our opportunity selection. And that could be from family, that could be the environment, the physical environment, like the actual climate, that I want to live in a warmer climate, or it could be the environment of the ecosystem of the organization or the industry, or the way the industry is moving. It could be the economy. Again, it could be my values. It could also be something that is called flow. And this is the idea that my interests, I have an interest in using my high-level skills, but they may not be being utilized in this environment in the most effective way. So this gentleman, whose name I cannot pronounce, and I apologize, he is a psychologist, and he wrote this book called Flow, and I highly, highly recommend this book to you. It is a fantastic book, and it talks about flow, which he defines as a mental state of operation in which the person is fully immersed in what they're doing, characterized by a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and success in the process of the activity. We want, in our careers, we want to find opportunities, career opportunities, jobs, organizations where we can experience flow. And I realized that I was in flow, particularly when I give speeches and webinars. A few years ago, I was speaking at a physics conference. And I was speaking on a Saturday night, and my speech was booked from 8 to 10 p.m. And at around 8:45, or 9:40, wait, 8 to 10. So at 9:45, I looked at my watch, and I said, we have 15 minutes left. I was having a really good time with that speech. The audience was interacting with me. I was getting a lot of feedback, and I was having so much fun. And I looked at my watch and I said, it's a 1:45. You know, I finished the main part of my speech, but we have 15 minutes left. Why don't I talk about resumes? Would you like to hear about resumes? I can talk about a new topic. And the people in the audience said, sure, why don't you talk about resumes? That'd be great. So I spent the next 15 minutes talking about resumes, and then I thanked everybody and I finished. And then two things happened when I finished. Number one, the moment that I stopped speaking, and I was wearing high heels while I had been speaking for those hours, the moment I stopped speaking, I suddenly had a flood of pain in my feet from wearing high heels for so long. I did not know I was in pain for those hours. I had no idea. The brain had not been talking to the feet and vice versa. Instead, I was completely immersed in the speech and the experience that I had no concept of the fact that I was in physical danger. Okay, so that was number one. I noticed that. Number two, I was so in focus and so completely not self-conscious, the merging of action and awareness, really appreciating the challenge of delivering this speech, feeling that I was using my skills and even honing my skills as I was giving the speech. I did not even realize that the time had passed. And in fact, when I looked at the clock and saw that it was a 1:45, I had actually gone over by 45 minutes. So the speech was to run from 8 to 10. And when I looked at the watch, it was actually 10:45, not 9:45. And yet I still was there. The people were still in the audience, and I was still enjoying it. And that's when Alaina realized that she has to have 5 different time devices in front of her at any given time when she's given a speech, because I get so immersed in the experience. And in fact, right now I'm looking at the time. But this is the mark of somebody who is experiencing flow. So the components of flow are that you are pursuing very clear goals, that you have high concentration and focus. You are truly fully immersed in that activity and in the problems associated with solving. You are not self-conscious. There is that merging of action and awareness, and certainly a distorted sense of time. I'm sure some of you have been in a lab, for example, where you don't even realize that it's been 10 hours, but you've just been having such a great time in the intellectual challenge that you didn't even realize that the time went by, or that you didn't even go to lunch, or that your feet were hurting you, or that there was no air conditioning. Like right now where I am, I just realized I don't have any air conditioning on, and I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I should have some AC on, but I didn't even realize that it wasn't on because I'm just so focused. I may be getting, with flow, direct and immediate feedback, both from myself as well as from the people that I'm interacting with, and I adjust my behavior as needed. And you'll see that when I do live events, and it's hard to tell when I'm doing a webinar, when I do a live events, I'll make jokes and people won't laugh. I know, shocking, right? That people don't find me funny 100% of the time. And I don't care. I will just go to the next joke, or I'll make a joke about the fact that nobody laughed at that joke. I adjust, and I find that very, very fulfilling to be able to do that. And there's a balance between my ability level and challenge, which I'm going to show you more about in a moment. I have this sense of personal control, and it is truly rewarding. So this idea of balancing ability level and challenge can be visualized using this fantastic chart that I made, which clearly shows off my artistic talents too. And the thing is that most people in their life and on the planet and in their jobs and careers, they find themselves in jobs and careers and in organizations where they're in the lower left-hand quadrant of this chart, where they're pursuing a job that requires very little skill level, and the challenges are also very low. There are some people that are off to the right, in the bottom right-hand quadrant, where the challenges are very high, but they don't have the skills to pursue those challenges, and that's very frustrating for them. And then there's people who are in the upper left-hand quadrant, where they have high-level skills, but the challenges are very low, so they are very bored. They're bored very easily. And what we're trying to do is find opportunities that are in the upper right-hand corner of that chart, where the skill level that required to solve these problems are high, and the challenges are high as well. And if we can pursue careers like that and identify what moments in our lives, take a mental snapshot. Am I in flow right now? am working on this project, looking at this particular piece of information, doing this computer program, doing this experiment, talking to these people. Am I in flow? If you can take that mental snapshot, that will help you to identify what opportunities you should pursue. So let's talk about how you actually find the right opportunities for me right now. The pillars of opportunity identification are rather simple. We realize that most opportunities are hidden. Approximately 90% of jobs are hidden, and we access them exclusively through networking, which involves self-promotion, appropriate self-promotion, and reputation management and amplification, with the idea that our reputation, being our most important asset, is going to get us access to opportunities that are going to be potential game changers for us, that are going to make us satisfied in our career. When we look to identify opportunities that are right, we're going to look for what opportunities exist right now, how people find out about these opportunities, what skills are needed, what assignments are required, what are the entry points, what's the culture of that profession or that organization or that industry like, what are the applications or resume or CV like that are required, and what the deadlines are. These are the questions that you will ask as you are networking, as you are having informational interviews or informal conversations. These are the types of questions that you're going to ask. How do you find this information? Who do you actually talk to? We'll start by talking to trusted, and the key there is trusted contacts, colleagues, and mentors. Engage professional organizations like those in the AIP Career Network. They are there to connect you, to help you to network with people who can help you to understand what these opportunities can be and to open the doors for those opportunities for you. And participate in also regional organizations too. Read related publications, such as trade magazines, not just journals, but trade publications, newsletters, things of that nature. Network both on social media and in person. Go to related conferences, speak to the speakers, volunteer, and be active on social media such as LinkedIn. Networking, of course, is the most important, and we can talk about that, and I've talked about that many times, and there's webinars you can take a look at of me discussing this issue. When we are looking to identify opportunities, we're also going to gather information through our networking. We're going to gather information about regions and organizations. Who's hiring? Did they just have a big layoff? That might not necessarily be a negative thing, because sometimes large organizations, they lay a bunch of people off and then they suddenly realize, you know what, we actually have to build back capacity. And they suddenly have a big hiring frenzy. So just because somebody has a layoff doesn't mean that you can't get a job with them. Another question you might ask, did they just get a huge influx of cash? Perhaps a loan, a grant, an investment, an angel investment or a high net worth donation or some form of capital that could potentially lead to growth in the staff numbers. You can contact chambers of commerce and regional economic development organizations to get more information. You can read the publications for the region and for the industry, including business newspapers. If you were interested in going into oil and gas, for example, you wouldn't just read journal papers about oil and gas. You would read the trade magazines and the trade websites that are devoted to the oil and gas industry. You would read the Houston Chronicle because that is the center of oil and gas in the United States. They have oil and gas stories, articles about the economics of oil and gas, and that can give you some very important information, and as well as online sources. Now I want to talk to you about finding the right opportunity for me right now, okay? So to find the right opportunity for yourself, you need to understand your overall career goal or goals. So this is summarizing what we've been talking about. We need to know what we want and need out of the change. We need to understand how this potential change and opportunity will help me achieve my career goal or goals now and in the future. I need to know how to access the opportunity, how to assess the opportunity to make sure it's right, and understand the permanent, which could be potentially exciting, consequences of this opportunity. Maybe utilizing my skills in a new environment, pursuing a career outside of academia for an academia, maybe going back to academia for an industry, or going into communications or something completely brand new. We can also look into making our own opportunities, and this is where identifying the problems we've solved in the past and what we enjoy to solve is going to be very, very helpful. If we can clearly identify what problems we've solved and what we enjoy solving and the ramifications of those solutions to potential partners, we could potentially make our own career and make our own job opportunities, and we will be more in tune and more attuned to opportunities that would be right for us. And what I mean by that, a great example of that, and this is an example I've given before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there was a particle physicist who, through networking, had an appointment, had a dinner arrangement with some people at Campbell's Soup Company, and the executives at Campbell's Soup were complaining about a problem they had in the plant where they made the mushroom soup. They couldn't solve the problem, but this particle physicist at this dinner said, well, why don't you just use this optical device? It was something he used every day. It was something he absolutely understood. He told them how to solve the problem in a unique way, and that led to a conversation, to more conversations, to a sabbatical job, to projects, to a job being created for him at Campbell's Soup Company, where he worked in the plants designing new innovations based on his particle physics expertise to solve problems in that plant, to make the plant more efficient. So that's a great example of when somebody says we have a problem, they may not necessarily use the phrase or the words, I have a problem, can you solve it? They may say it in a different way, but if you already know what problems you know how to solve, when they give you a clue, then you'll be able to say, wait a second, you know what, I can actually help you with that, and you could potentially create your own job. Another example is I've talked to industry leaders who have come back to academia. So these are scientists and engineers who work for many years, mostly in industry, so working for companies or working for government agencies, and later in their lives they decided to make a change and come back to academia. And in many cases they essentially created their own job in academia based on the unique expertise that they were able to bring. So they promoted themselves through their networking to these universities as unique problem solvers. You know, because I've been working in the food industry for 20 years, I would be able to help your engineering and science students navigate careers in the food industry. I'd be able to give them real-world problems that they could solve in the classes. I could teach courses that are absolutely rooted in, you know, specific problems that we see in industry as opposed to theoretical problems. I can arrange for internships. I can arrange even for industry financial support of student projects. I can arrange for students to work on projects with industry. Those are all very unique problems that only somebody who's worked in industry could provide an academic institution. And those people that I've described actually created their own careers and jobs in academia, because they identified the problems that they could solve that would be of value to the university. So when you identify that and you think entrepreneurially about your career, more opportunities open to you. So now let's kickstart our career plan. What do you say, huh? Let's do it. Why not? So here's my homework assignment for you. My first homework assignment is number 1, just identify. You don't even have to do them, but identify 3 tasks that you will do in the next 2 weeks that will aid you in identifying the right opportunities that are right for you. For example, you might do a LinkedIn search for people who are working in the profession you're interested in. Or you may go on to the Alumni Association for your alma mater and take a look and see where alumni have gone. Or you might, let's say you wanted to work in oil and gas, you might start reading the Houston Chronicle to see what that newspaper is saying about the oil and gas industry in Texas. So just identify 3 tasks that you can do just in the next 2 weeks that will help you in identifying the right opportunities. And now we're going to develop our actual plan. This is the how. So based on all of the internal data we've collected about ourselves, and then the external data that we've collected through the networking and the research, the reading, the going to conferences and things like that, in the planning phase, we are now going to take our career goals and we're going to break them down into major and minor goals based on the needs, the wants, the loves, the loads, and even the values. So our major goal might be to get a job in field X in industry Y in region Z, but our minor goal, based on our want as opposed to a need, might be to be in the New York City area, maybe to include opportunities where I can do teaching as well. I'm going to also decide on deadlines, timelines, and milestones with the idea that I am going to be 100% flexible. If I set a goal deadline for 6 months for myself and I say that every week, every month, every day I'm going to do X or Y or Z, and that's not working after the first week or even the first day, I'm going to alter it. I'm not going to beat myself up, but I'm going to change it, because that's not the right timeline. That's not the right plan for me. So I'm going to change it according to what my needs are. And if I don't achieve a minor goal on a particular day, I'm also not going to beat myself up. I'm just going to get back on the horse the next day, and I'm going to pursue it. But I do want to actually have a plan in place where I know what I'm going to be doing based on time frames, and it will help me to plot my success. It's very important for you to actually see on paper that you are achieving your goals. And since we are going to be flexible and pliable, we're going to include contingencies. So we're going to have multiple plans going at any given time, because you never know what can happen. I might have a choice that my change that I'm going to make is to move out of academia into government labs. But what if I don't get a job in the first 6 months? What if my current employer finds out and fires me? What am I going to tell my current employer? What if I get a job in less than 6 months, but I can't take it? I often have that issue with some of my clients where they get a job, the contract has been offered to them, but they are in their postdoc, for example. Their postdoc doesn't end until November, but the job starts in September. What do? And so to be able to put a plan in place so that you can decide what are the different options you could pursue if that happens is going to be very smart. What if I get an offer in a different field? How will I assess whether that's the right move to make? So those are the questions that you will ask yourself. In the plan B, C, and so on and so forth, you will expand your search parameters. You will ask yourself, what else do I want and need out of this change? I will ask myself, what other opportunities will fulfill my needs, wants, and career goals, and what will the impact be? And finally, we're going to execute the plan professionally. So let's say we land the opportunity. After we've made our choice and we've made our change, we land the opportunity. Now, before you actually do it, you're going to make your final decision. This is your final moment to make the choice. Is this right for me right now? And you're going to list out what are the right choices, why would this be right for me, what could be potentially wrong with this. You're going to actually write that out. Then you're going to plan your exit strategy. How am I going to leave the opportunity I'm in appropriately, professionally, without burning any bridges? I'm going to stay connected. I'm always going to continue to network. I'm not going to stop networking just because I leave a job or get a new job or change careers or change industries or professions. I am always going to continue to be networking and keeping my reputation stellar, and I'm going to always continue the data collection on myself and the data collection with others through networking to ensure that I stay on the right path. In conclusion, you rock. You are awesome, and you are in control, okay? That is important for you to remember. That is the most important thing to remember and to always keep in mind at the forefront of your brain. And I congratulate you for realizing you came to this webinar, so you must realize that you need and or want to change, and you have the courage to do something about it. And that's important to remember too. A lot of people want and need to make a change, and they don't do it out of fear. The fact that you're even thinking about it demonstrates to me that you actually possess that courage, and I think that's really terrific, and you should pat yourself on the back. We're going to do all of those different exercises, and again, I can send you copies of those if you email me, to identify the needs, the wants, the loves, the loathes, remember the eyeball test, and the overall career goals, and we're going to look to understand how hidden and non-hidden opportunities can be accessed and assessed. We're going to continue to conduct extensive research before we make any change. Develop that strategic plan, but with flexibility and contingency plans. Be professional, even if the people around you are not. Stay connected, continue to network, and enjoy the ride, and good luck in your next adventure, because it's going to be fantastic, I just know. Now with that, before we conclude for the day, I want to let you know that the next webinar is actually a corollary to this webinar. It's going to take place on October 19th. And it's going to be how to bounce back from a career challenge. So let's say you are laid off, or you are fired, or you have to leave your job, or something happens that interrupts your overall umbrella plan. How do we bounce back from that challenge? I'm going to walk you through that. As usual, there are a lot of resources. I'm going to send you a list of this for you to take advantage of. The Careers Toolbox, it's for undergraduate physics students, but I got to be honest with you, it is such a fantastic resource and really rich with content that is relevant to non undergraduate physics students. It's relevant to graduate students, and it's relevant to people who are 5, 10, 15, even 20 years into their career. So take a look at that. Check out my career column on Physics Today and my book, Networking for Nerds. Of course, we value your feedback, so I'd like to ask you to fill out the survey. I'm going to send you a link to it. And with that, I want to thank you so much for your kind attention, for sticking with me today as we embark on a change in our careers, and know that we do own this. We are accountable, we are responsible, and we are in power to change the way we approach change and to take advantage of opportunities that allow us to change. So thank you so much. I want to thank the AIP Career Network. And now I'm going to stick around for some questions. This concludes our formal webinar, but I want to thank you so much again. This has been a privilege and an honor to speak with you. So I'm going to stick around for some questions, but thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you next time.